Hello and welcome to the Quarter Notes podcast presented by Los Cabos Drumsticks, Canada's #1 drumstick manufacturer. We are back with a new look and a bit of a different format from the previous episodes. I'll be having a conversation with different guests to find out more about them and their journey as an artist. This episode, I get to have a conversation with the drummer from legendary Canadian punk rock band D.O.A, and that is Paddy Duddy. Now, this was a great chat with Paddy. He shared some really cool stories. We talk about how he sort of manifested becoming D.O.A.'s new drummer to then thinking that he wasn't qualified for the job, and how he's since learned to appreciate where he sits in the lineage of D.O.A.'s great drummers. He's now the longest serving drummer in D.O.A. He just celebrated his 10th year anniversary with the band, so congratulations to Paddy on that achievement. So since the recording of this podcast, the Punkocalypse Festival for this summer, Canada Day weekend in Fredericton, New Brunswick, has been announced. So on the Saturday, the 29th of June, D.O.A. is headlining, and I'll be playing somewhere in the lineup with Six Gun Smoke. So I'm really looking forward to sharing the stage with Paddy this summer at the festival, and hopefully get to see you all out there as well. But until then, you get to enjoy my conversation with Paddy on the Quarter Notes podcast.
Hey man, you ever work for D.O.A?
Way down in old Vancouver town, I didn't have a dollar to lay on down. In an old man Joyce that drove my way. Said,
hey, you want to drum for D.O.A?
It was D.O.A. It was D.O.A.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
As they say from my neck of the woods, the very best.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's an East Coast Miramichi. Well, it's how's she going? And the answer is always the very best. It's
Very best. Oh,
yeah.
that sounds good. I'm glad to hear it. So where are you located?
I'm in the Irish capital of Canada, Miramichi, New Brunswick.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm not Irish. I'm French.
Well, I am Irish. I was born in Derry, Northern Ireland.
That's right. Yeah.
Hmm.
I knew that. I don't like to do a whole lot of like digging into guests or anything. I want to just, have a conversation. So I skim the surface on a couple of things, and usually where were you, where you're from is kind of one of the easy things to find out.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Googleable.
Yeah, you're on Wikipedia.
Like, none of that shit's true on Wikipedia, by the way.
Probably not.
No.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's people just kind of put whatever and can edit it and add stuff to it all the time. So unless you're the type of person that, goes and fact checks your own Wikipedia page.
Oh, I spend a lot of time self-Googling.
Yeah,
It's one of my favorite pastimes.
yeah. Yeah. Um, so yeah, first of all, thank you for being on the Quarter Notes podcast for Los Cabos. This is the first episode back from the previous podcast that I was doing with Rich Knox, where it was kind of the two of us, and so he's unable to commit to doing it, so I'm flying solo from now on. So it's
Nice.
yeah, but it's not my first rodeo. So
Nice. Sweet.
yeah.
And so this is a drum, like this is all about drums and drumming kind of podcast.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't want to just talk drums and nerd out on like drum heads and
Mhm.
bearing edges and all that kind of nerdy stuff. I mean, we can, but like I don't know a whole lot about it, so
Do you know what? Me neither, to be honest, man.
it'd be a pretty short podcast. Um, yeah, so when we were chatting before you agreed to do this, I mentioned that my band Six Gun Smoke were supposed to open for you guys last year at the Punkocalypse. I even said it right. That's a hard word to say.
Yeah.
Punkocalypse. Yeah.
Huh.
Festival in Fredericton. But Joey had a hernia
That's
and
right.
had to have surgery, so you guys had to back out. But this year you guys are coming back on, I believe it's the 29th. Is it the Saturday?
I don't know the exact dates of any East Coast stuff or any of that area, but it's yeah, I think yeah, end of June, early July for sure. So I just don't know the exact dates. I kind of just got a rough schedule for a tour, but yeah, which I'm
Yeah.
stoked to go back there.
Yeah.
I actually played Fredericton with the Mahones. I did a show there. I don't know. I'm gonna say a year or two ago, like that. I did one tour or two tours with those guys, just
Mhm.
and ended up playing in Fredericton for the first time.
Yeah. And I believe it's the same bar.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is it?
Broken Records Bar and Music Room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were nice, really nice folks there. Yeah,
Yeah.
sweet.
Trevor,
Oh,
the owner, him and his wife, they're the ones that are putting on the punk festival.
of
Yeah.
course, that makes a lot of sense. I actually remember him talking something about a festival to me, like when I was there
Yeah.
with moms. Yeah, huh,
Yeah.
cool.
Because they did one year. It wasn't called Punkocalypse. It was something else. I think it was just the New Brunswick Punk Festival or something like that. And then it became the Punkocalypse, which he wants to do every year during Canada Day weekend. So the end of June, 1st of July kind of thing. Yeah.
Perfect. Love it.
Yeah. Oh, it
Sounds
was a
great.
great time. Yeah,
Yeah,
you guys are gonna have a blast.
I can't wait. I'm actually just really looking forward to playing because we had a bit of a slow year with Joe with the surgeries and stuff like that, right? So we didn't get out as much as we normally do. So
Hmm.
we got a few shows in, but definitely not a normal. It hasn't really been super normal since COVID. So yeah,
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 that's putting it lightly, really.
yeah,
Yeah. Even well, and it affects the bigger bands, the touring bands, but it also affects like the local bands and stuff like that. Like, because they need a place to play, and everybody, once the COVID kind of let up and people were able to get back to whatever normal is now, everybody was wanting to get out and play. So it was just like this, funnel of everybody wanting to get out. So there was like a bit of a bottleneck with bands being able to take book shows.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
totally. A super bottleneck and I don't know, yeah, it almost got like, yeah, it did get saturated where there were so many bands and so many shows playing, at least here in our town, that attendance was starting to thin out a bit because there's just too many cool things happening at once.
Yeah, right. You can't go every weekend.
No,
You
no,
get played out.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, things
No.
seem to be pretty good right now. Like we have some tours booked that just seem like kind of like just more like how they were in the past, like 2 3 week kind of stints, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the things seem to be leveling out. And I think
Yeah.
the next we're doing a little states run, but yeah, I think the next big Canadian thing is out east in June, July. So
Mhm.
yeah,
And
so
it's been a while since you guys have been out this way. Like, would have been before you were in the band?
it would have been before I was in the band, and I just celebrated 10 years, so it's got to be 10 to
Right.
15 years
Yeah,
since.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Um, so you said you were born in Northern Ireland.
yeah,
Yeah. So and then you moved to Canada when you were pretty young age.
yeah, that's right.
Um,
In Ireland at that time, we were born in the north in the 70s. Ireland was very, lots of violence and, lots of, shenanigans going on there with things exploding and stuff like that. So
yeah.
my father got himself into a situation where he thought we better jet out of here, and yeah, loaded us all up short notice. But the legend goes, according to my parents, bought tickets to Australia. But then my uncle, who had moved to Canada before us, he got here and he said, "No, Canada's the place," and helped us get over here. Help the
Mhm.
family. And I was just a little kid. Went to school and with a thick Irish accent, and everybody laughed at me. I had my name's Paddy Duddy. I don't even have a middle name to break it up. I got this ridiculous name and a little Irish accent, big giant head. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
got
It
to
makes a
Canada.
great stage name. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, when you're a kid trying to fit in though, it kind of sucked. I kept trying to get people to call me Pat or Patrick my whole life, and
mhm.
sometimes it would stick, but most people would just revert to Patty, and then I'd be stuck on for Patty. Now
Yeah.
it's fine. I don't mind. Now it's too old. I'm too old. I can't change anything. But when I was a kid, I hated it. My
Yeah.
mom, my mom told me it took me 2 weeks to lose my accent when I decided I didn't want to talk like an Irishman anymore.
Oh, yeah. So did you actually like work at losing it? Like,
I did. Yeah, I copied my friend. I tried to, just talk like I just ripped off my best mate, talk like
mhm.
him as much as I possibly could back when I was a kid. And I honestly think today we probably still sound alike. You know what I mean? Because everything, all his mannerisms, I just copied him.
Yeah, yeah. So when you say they loaded you all in, like how many siblings were there?
And so I have a younger brother and an older brother.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was right in the middle. So, and we were all young, like we were all like under 10 years old when we moved.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And Irish, I mean, I'm French Acadian, so there's a lot of musical culture. And I know there's a lot of culture in from Ireland and pertaining to music. Is that something that goes back along all the Duddies? Like, is that something that you were kind of born into?
Yeah, 100% actually. Especially on my mom's side of the family, my mom came from a big family, like I'm gonna say 8 brothers and sisters, that kind of family.
Yeah, that
And
generation. Yep.
yeah, and every one of the males, like every one of her brothers, got made their living as a professional musician. So like my uncle, who is in Ireland, he's just in Dublin. He's a very well known jazz guitar player, and he's you know his whole life that's all he's done. He's been a professional musician, and all my other uncles, yeah, they played music. So in our house when we were young, I wanted a drum set, and my parents wanted me to play the accordion, which I was already getting beat up at school, so add an accordion to the mix. It's
Yeah.
not going to help much. But so I took accordion lessons when I was a kid, and there was always kind of music in the house a little bit. My parents
Mhm.
didn't really play anything too much, but there was a piano in the house and a guitar in the house, and yeah, my older brother and I started a band back when we were like so young, like
Mhm.
kids,
Yeah.
little kids. We started our first band, and my younger brother, who was always a giant music fan, he would back in the 90s promote shows for us. Like we were just so it was always really in the family for sure. Yeah.
Mhm. Almost
Yeah.
have like your own what is it called? I'm totally blanking on the like when like your own publication, your own magazine, your own like fanzine almost.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
We definitely well, yeah, we definitely were kids. Like it's funny. Like I play Irish music now, and I play accordion and a little guitar with some friends, and we play Irish music. But when we were kids, even though we came from Ireland, and my parents had all the Irish music, and my dad would sing all the Irish songs, we hated it. We didn't want anything to do with it, so we all splintered off into
Mhm.
the world of punk rock or heavy metal, but we just
Yeah.
couldn't stand it. And then way later in life, now I love Irish music and I love playing it with
Yeah.
my mates and that kind of stuff. But when I was a kid, I hated it.
Yeah.
I
I
guess
mean,
it's for you when you're a kid, you kind of like you just want to be like cool or whatever, right?
you're not supposed to like the stuff that your parents like, like,
Exactly.
and I'm the same way, like with, I mean, growing up, it was country music here, right? So it's
Hmm.
like a lot of George Jones and Merle Haggard and, all that kind of stuff. And I just didn't want anything to do with it. I was listening to, Metallica and Slayer and,
Yeah.
Nirvana and all that stuff. And that's when I started playing music and listening to those bands. And then now that I'm an adult, like when I'm listening on my Spotify or listening to whatever at work, like every now and again, I'll throw on a George Jones record or it's full circle that way. And I think
Totally.
it's true
Yeah.
for a lot of people. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no, and you realize, oh, maybe your parents, or our parents weren't that far out to lunch with this stuff.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool. It's cool. And I love it now because, my dad, he's 85 years old, and every now and then, we'll get together and he'll bust out some old Irish ditty, and he'll just be sitting in a chair singing some song, and now I really appreciate it listening to him
Oh,
here
yeah.
out sing all this stuff. I really, really appreciate it. And I love hearing it.
Yeah.
But growing up, I just thought, oh, get me away from this shit.
Yeah. Was it
Yeah.
like a lot of like kitchen parties kind of stuff? Like a lot of people coming over to the house and, you know, pints of Guinness and guitars and mandolins and everything flowing?
No, so yeah, we didn't have that culture because
Okay.
we moved to like Edmonton when we first got off the plane, kind of thing, from Ireland in the winter. So without proper jackets, we get off
Mhm.
this plane
Yeah.
and we're like, well, this is insane. But yeah, so no, we didn't really have like the culture around us so much with other people coming over with instruments and stuff. Like my parents would make friends with, how parents do with other Irish families that had moved from Ireland, that kind of thing. But no, there was none of that. that's East Coast Canada stuff where it's
Yeah.
really cool, and I love that shit. But no,
Yeah.
we didn't really have that much as a kids. My parents had tons of Irish albums, and some of them I still have in my record collection over here. But like, so there was lots of Irish music in the house, and we all played, and we all took lessons, like piano lessons or accordion lessons as kids. But yeah, no, I think I would have really enjoyed that as a kid if we had more of those kitchen party stuff.
Hmm.
And later in life, actually, my mom, she moved out here to Nelson, British Columbia, where I live right now. She moved out here 26 years ago. And every time we go to her place, she would host, and it would be kitchen parties, everybody with their instruments, everybody bringing songs. And we did that every single year, maybe once or twice a year at her place. And lots of Irish music at that point. We did
Hmm.
that up until her death about 10 years ago. So so it did happen, but just not when we were kids.
Right. So it's something that you're kind of given to your children. Like you have kids?
No, I have a cat, but
Okay.
my big brother has two kids, and I don't know how much interest they have in Irish music, to be honest. Maybe when they get older, they'll be like, oh yeah, this
It'll
is
be the
cool.
same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
It'll
Yeah, right
click.
now they're into like just like what teenagers are into kind of music.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I
My
don't even want to
actually
know.
my niece, no, my niece actually, her name's Mia. She's actually going to university out in Montreal. She's got killer taste in music. She likes old punk. She likes new punk. She likes these types of bands that I've actually never even heard of before. And then I watch them like a video on YouTube and I'm like, this is insane. Like she does really have cool taste in music, Mia
Yeah.
does. Yeah,
That's awesome.
she's got, and her dad, my brother, I was in bands with him for years and years and years. He's a bass player, great songwriter. So I think she got a little bit of that in the blood, you know.
Hmm.
She plays bass, she plays a bit of drums, you know. So I don't know. I don't know about the Irish music, but she definitely has good taste in punk music.
Well, I mean, that's easy. Punk, all punk music is good music, right?
Yeah, well,
I mean,
preaching to the
well,
converted here, yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, the thing with punk music is it's just such a wide variety within the genre.
Totally,
Because
yeah.
you've got your hardcore punk, you got your ska punk, you got your Southern California punk, your East Coast, like there's your Brit punk. They're all so different, but they all kind of have that same attitude and that same vibe, that connects all of them together, you know?
Totally, yeah, totally. And I'm a fan of like all of the above. I
Yeah.
like it all. Yeah.
So your brother you were in a band with, was that Rusty Nails?
It was, and then many bands kind of leading up to Rusty Nails. That was the last band that we were in together. But we were in bands, like I say, since I'm gonna say in grade 5 or something like that. You know,
Oh
grade
yeah.
6. Yeah, we started bands way when we were little kids, right? 10 years old. We had bands. And they weren't
And
even real bands. You were just like
and you weren't
bachelor.
playing the accordion at that time.
No, I luckily enough, my dad caved. It would have been cool, but my dad caved when I was 10 years old, and for Christmas bought me my first drum set.
Okay.
And it was a piece of shit. It was a like from a Sears catalog.
Was it
Think
the CB 7000 or 700,
no,
whatever?
way worse, way worse. It was called like I think it was called Satin Steel or something like this. And I got it for Christmas. I set it up in my bedroom and I started playing it. And this because the skins were basically paper.
Yeah.
I had broke the skins on the first day. And then I also got Hardy Boys books for Christmas, those old hardcover Hardy Boys books. This is 1981. And I put the Hardy Boys books on the drum skins so I could still play on something because the skins were broke. And then my
Mhm.
dad came in the room and my room and I thought I was going to be in trouble. You know, the classic. He looks at it and I've already broken my new
Yeah.
toy. And
Yeah.
he's like my classic. My dad, are these? Is this a piece of shit, Patty? And I'm like, I think so. And then he went out and we went to a I went to a pawn shop and I bought a Baxter, which is another crappy drum set, but it's a real drum set. Bought
Yeah.
a Baxter drum set, so I had my first real kit at that point, and then the rest is history, man. I was
Hmm.
10 years old and I'm 52, so it's a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so what, like listening to the type of music, what were the drummers that kind of started to influence your playing, like that you were trying to like emulate, or when you were listening to them, trying to like dissect what they were doing to kind of be able to do it yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really, when I was that age, 10 years old, my favorite band in the whole world, and it was my gateway drug to punk rock, was Adam and the Ants. I don't know if you remember Adam and the Ants, but they had two drummers, which when you're a little kid
Oh
and a band
yeah.
pull off two drummers, it like to me it was just like mind blowing. And all their songs, they had these really these they were just really like rhythmic. Like they didn't play drum beats like nothing like that. It was always like this kind of stuff. And so I would just go crazy for that kind of music. Like I just loved Adam and the Ants. And then that turned into buying Sex Pistols.
Mhm.
So yeah, got really super into Sex Pistols. Of course, D.O.A, Chuck Biscuits, Chuck
Oh
Biscuits still to this
yeah.
day, like like
I mean,
he's
his
he's like
resume.
16 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been playing drums for 40 years and I can't play like he plays when he was 16. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's
I
the
mean,
guy
his
just
resume,
it's
DOA,
it's crazy.
uh,
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Danzig, like
Mhm.
Black Flag, just yeah,
Yeah, the guy was a phenomenon.
yeah. And Social Distortion later on, like
Social D, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so those all big influences in that early stuff. Like I say, mostly like Adam the Ants, Sex Pistols these are like the real early bands for me. And then I kind of got into more teen years, and then I fell in love with a Calgary band called Beyond Possession. They were a hardcore crossover band, so this is where things started to morph for me a little bit into hardcore.
Mhm.
Um, Beyond Possession had a drummer called Phil, who was again another unstoppable, a machine. That band really influenced me a lot. Personality Crisis, Winnipeg band. John Card, he was also a D.O.A drummer later, SNFU drummer at one point.
Mhm.
Personality Crisis, that band, that drumming, like John Card's drumming. He's another like. It's really funny because he's like all of the greatest Canadian drummers, like all of them. And I am
Mhm.
not including myself in this list by any stretch of the imagination,
Well,
but all the Canadian drummers, like if you look at like John Wright from No Means No, he played on a DOA album. John Wright from No Means No is Canada's greatest drummer. And I'll put him up against anybody. I'll put him up against anybody. You got him, you got Chuck Biscuits, and you've got John Card. Like these guys are some of the greatest drummers Canada will ever see, and they've
mhm.
all kind of worked their way through DOA at some point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're in that pedigree. You're in that band for a reason, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Joe's standards are at an all-time low, mate. You know what I'm saying?
Well, didn't I mean I thought I heard something somewhere. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you joining the band was sort of initiated by a transaction of selling him t-shirts or exchanging t-shirts for a
That's
guitar.
right. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's how it goes. Yeah, no, it was so I've known Joe for many years because I was in other bands that
Hmm.
opened for DOA. Obviously, like every other Canadian band, we'd opened for
Yeah.
DOA many times and even played a few shows on the road with them, things like that. So and Joe probably knew me the most from this other band called Circle the Wagons where I play bass and sing. Anyways, he posted on Facebook one day that he was selling his Gibson SG, like not the really old rad one, but like this really nice SG, and he wanted a lot of money for it. Like he wanted a lot of money, and I have a t-shirt printing business, just like every washed-up rocker does. When they can't get a real job, they start their t-shirt printing business. So I just had this idea, like, oh man, I wonder if Joe would want to trade DOA shirts for that guitar. So I just reached out to him and I asked, hey Joe, you want to trade like I can't remember a big number of shirts, 400 shirts or something for that guitar, because I could make the shirts myself for pretty cheap. And so Joe was going to sell these shirts, make way more money.
Hmm.
It's going to cost me way less. I just thought this was a great idea. So when I was dropping off the shirts, he agreed to it. And when I was dropping off the shirts, he just happened to mention that he was maybe going to need a drummer. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, and I got back to Nelson, thought about it for a bit, and I didn't say anything at the time, but then I reached out to him on an email and I just said, hey, if you're looking for a drummer or whatever, I'd be interested. And and he's like, why aren't you a bass player? And I'm like, well, yeah. But I also play drums, and we played together in a band, Rusty Nails. We did a bunch of shows together. Oh, I remember that band. Okay, that you were there. Okay, and he did the math.
Yeah.
And at first, he was a little bit like, you don't live in the same city. How's this going to work out or whatever. He was a little bit hesitant. And then so I thought, oh, nothing's going to come of it. But then I don't know. It was like, I think I might not be getting this totally right, but there was not a lot of time. He kind of just got a hold of me and was like, oh, okay, you're in the band and we have this tour. We were going to go down through the States. It was a big tour. We were doing the States, we were doing China, we were doing Australia, Europe. It was massive.
Mm-hmm. No
But
audition,
no audition,
let's go.
no. We only have 4 practices. So yeah. So you can imagine so I was actually in Ireland at the time. I flew back to Canada and showed up and hopped on the drums, and the first practice went terrible, awful. And I'm like, I just fucking couldn't do it. It was like, and I was just like, oh no. But Joe was just like, he could tell that I was really frustrated, and Joe was just like, don't worry about it, Paddy. Don't quit, because we don't have anybody else right now. We're leaving on Thursday. Don't quit. And I'm just like, okay. So we try to work me in as best as possible, but in all honesty, I was not ready. I was not prepared. I didn't have enough kind of.
Well, there was no notice.
There was. I should have been more prepared. Maybe is a better way of putting it. But and then we went out, and then Joe's really cool. Joe's he's badass. We played our first show in Portland. It's packed out Portland. I don't know, big club. Playing with MDC, and I told Joe, hey, tell the audience you're working in a new drummer. I just joined 4 days ago. Tell the audience, so they know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Joe's just like, oh, fuck that, Paddy. We don't make excuses. We're fucking D.O.A. We're not whatever. However you play, that's how the D.O.A. drums are played right now. So we're not making excuses. Fuck that. So I was like, okay, that's cool. And then we played what I knew. This is the first show. We played what I knew. And we got off stage, and the crowd was kind of going crazy and wanting more and more. And Joe comes out and he says, what else do you know, Paddy? And I'm like, nothing. And he's like, could you play Folsom Prism? I think it was, a cover. We'll just go out and do a cover. And I said, okay, I kind of know how it goes. And then Dan, who was the bass player at the time, says, okay, just do this, the train beat, do that. And then when I nod at you, go into punk rock beat. And then when I nod at you, do the train beat. And then it ends like dun, 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 dun. And I'm like, okay, I got it. And then we were back on stage and did this, I'm sure terrible version of that song. And that was the first show. And then we were off to the races. We literally, I don't know, I probably played, I have no idea, but I'm going to say 80 shows or something like that. But because we did a couple weeks in Australia, Hong Kong, China, and then maybe 13 countries in Europe. That was all that year when I just joined, right? So it was busy.
Wow, that's tearing the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, oh, totally. Yeah, totally. And I like to tell this story as well. Joe, we're playing. This is in Beijing, and got people Joe's, anything you want to hear? And then a whole bunch of people in the audience for some reason really liked the song Already Dead, and I had never played that song with the band or anything like that. That's Ken Jensen, another amazing drummer, D.O.A. drummer, amazing drummer. Unfortunately, passed away very young, but yeah, Joe's like, hey, Paddy, this is on stage in front of the big audience. Do you know Already Dead? And I'm like, yeah, Joe, I know the song, but I don't know how to play it. That's great. We're going to play it anyway.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, great. And it's kind of a hard song, right? So yeah, I turn around, play the song, and I totally screw it up, of course. And then Joe comes after me after. He's like, hey, Paddy, what was up with Already Dead? How come you couldn't? I'm like, I told you.
I told you.
Yeah, never played that song before. Yeah. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And like I said, this, I have to give it to Joe. He put up with a lot of my, just learning on the fly, and just, yeah, Joe, he had a really good temperament about it all, he had a really good, because there were shows I know I did not do a great job, but we just move on. And yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of at warp speed, kind of going through the trenches together. You know what I mean? That builds that you've been through shit quicker
Totally.
than,
Yeah.
so that, that first year or whatever feels like you've been a unit for, 10 years. So
Totally.
you kind of get that pedigree, you kind of get that, you know, getting through all that crazy shit, all the crazy shows that, people do when they're kids and they're starting out, you know what I mean? Like, so you kind of build that brotherhood. You're probably much closer, like you say, than you would have been had you not gone through all that.
I 100%. I think I got a lot of respect for him, and I think he does me. We have been through a lot for sure, and those early days, like I say, like to what we were talking about, right? D.O.A. is famous for its drummers, famous, and the greatest drummers of all time. Chuck Biscuits, arguably the greatest of all time at punk rock drumming. And then I come onto the scene not having my shit together. Like he should have been madder at me. He should have been more upset about this because we have a reputation to uphold here. But no,
Yeah.
he was cool. He was super cool the whole time. I was way harder on myself than he ever was on me. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, as drummers, we do that a lot, and
Yeah.
you're probably looking at it through like, the self, being overly critical of what you were doing. It probably sounded amazing, you know,
Sure.
or maybe
Yeah.
okay, maybe not amazing, but
Well, I wouldn't say amazing. It's
you know,
passable. It's passable. I
yeah,
was playing punk
and
rock
it's punk
beats and
rock.
shit like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Yeah. I really had to learn early on to not get so worked up about all that kind of stuff because like I remember like we were playing Rebellion Festival probably 2014, I'm gonna guess, and or 2014, and it's like we're playing with all my favorite bands. I'm like I've been hanging out with like Jello Biafra backstage and GBH and all these bands. I just like everybody, Lars Friedrichsen, I got to meet him, and I'm like all these really amazing like heroes of mine, really. And I'm playing this great show, and we're playing like a big room, thousands of people, and I'm up on stage, and the whole time I'm sitting there worrying about how like not fucking up, and I'm thinking, this is like afterwards I thought, this is like a dream for little Paddy who picked up the drums and got into punk rock. This is it, man. This is as good as it's gonna get. And instead of enjoying it, I'm sitting there going, "Oh, I dropped that one beat, or I fucked up that one fill," and that's what's going on in my head the whole time. And after that, after like that rebellion, that really stuck with me. I thought, okay, listen, man, this this is what you want. You better like learn to enjoy it. So I used to write "Don't happy, be worry" on my snare drum because it was just a reminder of how I can like get in my own head and ruin really great experiences just by worrying about dropping a drumstick, things like that, So I've gotten better over the years and learned how to enjoy myself.
yeah, and that definitely comes with experience and not appreciating what you've got. You're always thinking about, what's next or, I messed up that last song. So now I'm not thinking about this song or I'm not appreciating the crowd or,
Yeah,
one of those other moments that happened that was really good. You just kind of pass it off. It's kind of like when
exactly.
somebody at the end of a show comes up to you and gives you a compliment. I'm terrible. I can't take a compliment. Like I can't like they're like, "Oh, great show." I was like, "Yeah, no, I was terrible." Like
Yeah,
just stop and appreciate that you did something for them and they enjoyed it, so
yeah,
you
totally,
should enjoy it too, right?
totally, yeah,
Because it's music at the
100%.
end of the day.
Yeah, yeah, and those little things. Another really great example of this for me was we were playing a show. Oh, I'm not going to remember where. Czech Republic, I think. Big outdoor stage, like
Mhm.
festival show. We're our
Yeah.
headlining stage. GBH goes on before us, and GBH's drummer. I don't know if you know that cat, but like that guy in his 50s, killer drummer, like just killer, right? They're just kicking ass, and I'm like, okay, I'm like looking forward to the show, and then we get up there afterwards, and we play this show and just nothing like it's because it's like a backline kit. It's not set up right. I didn't
Yeah.
get my shit together in time, and I'm playing and everything feels awkward. I don't feel like I'm landing anything. It just feels like the worst show of my career, and I'm doing this in front of this big on, and I'm like one of my old favorite bands is watching side stage, and I'm like man, like what a terrible like what a show to ruin like this, right? Then, and I was so down on myself. I was like, I'm quitting music forever. I'm gonna go like,
Yeah.
like get a job flipping burgers. And I'm like, we go about a year later, a couple years later, I'm looking for footage of us live on stage to make we're making kind of like a homemade video to promote a song kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
And me and the bass player are working on this video, and I find this bit of footage, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. And I look at the song. Oh, I'm going to post like 3 songs from this show, and then later find out, oh, wait a second, that's that show in the Czech Republic. Wait a second, that's that show that I wanted to quit music. So even when I watched myself afterwards, I couldn't tell that I was having the worst show of my life. You know what I mean? That was so eye-opening to me because I thought the whole audience was looking at me going, what the fuck's wrong with that drummer? He can't keep it together. But then when I watched the footage a year later, I thought, oh, this is a deadly show. This is great footage. There's all these people and we sound great and we're like on top of it and we're so sharp. And I'm like, when I realized it was a bass player, it's like, oh, that's the show in the Czech Republic from that festival that we did. And I'm like, no way.
It's all about perspective.
Perspective, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so much different. Like literally that I would post the show onto our Facebook and our whatever. I'd post the show that I at the time considered to be my worst performance of my life. So then I was like, yeah, I got to get over this shit.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to get out of your own head.
You got to get out of your own head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So going back to like when you were starting out, do you remember your first time playing a show? Like
Yep.
what that was like?
Totally. Yeah. I know what it was like because a friend of mine's parents videotaped it and I was able to watch that videotape afterwards and I remember it quite well. We were in a band called Play Dead and it's going to be 87, 6, 15 years old, 16 years old, something like that. And it was at a community hall and we were an opening act for 2 other bands and I was so nervous I wanted to throw up beforehand. I remember just being so nervous that I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. And halfway through the show, being the most alive I'd ever been in my entire life up to that point and feeling that this was it. Holy moly, because the audience was all skanking and I was looking over my brother, my brother's he's playing and you can see him rocking out and like I was like, this has really come together. Like we had a great singer at the time, this guy named Buzz, really active, jumping all over the place. And I was just like, oh my goodness, this is it. Like, this is it. And then like, oh man, I watched this video because I saw the video for years. It's long lost now, but at the end of the show, I literally stand up behind the drum set, cross my arms, and just like look out at the audience. Like I've got this like 16-year-old attitude. Like I'm just like the shit.
Right. So
Like,
so drawing that to when you're at that festival, like that's night and day of perspective. Like,
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Totally. Yeah. But that first show was it's big for me, little community hall punk show,
Yeah.
bunch of punk bands. I think we
Like
were on
60, 70 people is like, it's like a
probably,
stadium.
yeah. Oh man. And
Yeah.
they all danced, they all cheered. And for me, it was just like incredible. Yeah. It
Yeah.
was
Were you
incredible.
doing covers or originals?
Originals? No, originals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All originals. Like, I think we did one cover. I think we did, I'm not going to remember. We did we usually threw in one cover, but no, it was all originals, all songs we wrote. I wrote a lot of lyrics when I was a little kid, all like punk rock lyrics. So that was more my thing. Our bass player at the time was a really good lyric writer, I remember. And my brother was always a really great songwriter. So it was easy to just knock out songs in those days because you didn't care. And the songs were so stupid. Like our early songs, like one of our most early ones was like a song about a possessed, like evil proctologist, because when you're a little kid you find out there's doctors that are like ass doctors. You think this is the funniest thing you've ever heard in your whole life. Oh, you don't think you might need one day, but like you're like some weird little kids. We thought like, oh, imagine like if a song about like he was like evil proctologist, right? So like our early song, like some of the lyrics to that one was like, don't try to put up any fight, he just wants to see what you ate last night. Yeah, just like stupid things like that. Like, because it was easy to write songs in those days because you were just like an idiot, right? You're just like a little
Yeah.
kid. Anything that came to mind was a great punk song, right?
same, like, teenager, you're playing local, just kitchens or basement parties, and then we didn't, my first band, we didn't do, well, we played some covers, but we were right into originals right away. And
It's awesome.
I think that's just like, yeah, I think you ask any punk rock band or musician about their first bands and they'll tell you, I would put money, I'm not a betting person, but I would put money that they would say that they started with originals right away.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know of a punk rock cover band I've ever seen in my life. Like,
Yeah.
you know what
Well,
I
I
mean?
mean, me
Like,
first and the Gimme Gimmes.
yeah, I
Yeah.
guess, like, like, but like, I mean, a local band that you see come to a
Yeah.
show. I mean, maybe that's not true. Maybe I have seen, but not. Yeah, it's not really a thing.
Yeah.
It's so much better to write your own stuff and play your own stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's no money in it, but
Hey, there's still no money in it, man. Like, fuck,
you know,
years later, it's hilarious. But
yeah.
yeah, because I remember in the '80s, like in the late '80s, that the cover band scene became the thing that made all the money. You know, that was
It's still huge on the East Coast. Like
really.
there's oh yeah, there's cover bands, they tour. Like there's cover bands that go from city to city, they'll go from province to province and they have their own light show, the smoke machines, it's a whole they have like trailers that they're pulling and like they're making probably upwards of I mean, I've heard that some of them are making like three or four, maybe 5,000 a night.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Doing covers or like tribute
doing
bands?
doing covers. Like radio jukebox band, basically.
Yeah, I know. I missed my calling, man.
Yeah.
I did 12-year stint in an AC/DC tribute band called BCDC, and
Yeah.
it's true that that band made money. That band played big shows. You know, that band did a lot. You know, for sure, it was easy to do. Yeah,
Yeah. I think good tribute bands should make more than cover bands.
tribute bands seem a little bit more interesting to me than
Yeah.
just a cover band. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
'Cause-
for
And
sure.
then not to say that there's less work from one to the other, but when you're a tribute band, at least if you're going to be a tribute band, you've got to put on the show. Like you got to have the look, you've got to have the sound, you've got to have the same gear. Like you can't just like show up there with a fanny pack and, a baseball cap if you're going to be doing Eddie Van Halen. Like, you know what I
No,
mean? Like,
you better, yeah, you better be sharp because
yeah.
all of the fans, all the Eddie Van Halen fans, are going to show up and
Mhm.
they're going to be watching your fingers, and like, you better be
Right.
sharp.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, I think tribute bands have it a little tougher because there's much more scrutiny involved.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure there would be, and yeah, maybe there should be. Yeah,
Okay, so we haven't talked a whole lot of drums.
yeah,
So you're a fellow Los Cabos drumstick artist.
yes,
So do you remember when you first came upon those sticks? Like when you first started playing them?
yeah. I know exactly. It was like what happened to me was I, not a lot of technique, so like a lot of rim shots and a lot of broken sticks. I was going through a lot of sticks, and it was actually because Joe had, I guess I can't. Guess it was the maybe JJ or some other D.O.A drummer. I'm not sure. Another D.O.A drummer had been using Los Cabos sticks. So it was just Joe. Joe said to me, "Why don't you contact these guys?" And because I was spending tons of cash on drumsticks, right? Um, so at first I contacted them and I didn't like it, how you get your name and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I didn't get any of that. I just wanted to just like get try something else out. And I honestly I was just blown away by the durability. I was just like, oh, like this is like these things are gnarly.
Mhm.
And I loved that it was like something Canadian too, right? So I was just like, but really, honestly, if it wasn't, if they weren't just such great sticks, that part didn't really matter. I just needed to get a better
Yeah,
stick.
yeah,
I just needed to get a better drumstick, and I was playing like brand name drumsticks that were not like big brand name drumsticks, just
yeah,
weren't cutting.
yeah,
Especially like early, like I say, early DOA days, we played on so many shows, and it's a hard hitting gig in being DOA. Joe's like, that's the one thing. Joe's is like, you just got to you got to pound that shit out. There's no tapping in that band. no subtleties, just full on. So, you know, you can go through a couple sets in a show, right? So it was yeah, it was expensive. So yeah. So
Yeah.
then and then yeah, so I was a convert really, really quick, you know, and you know, wrote to Phil and said, fuck, awesome. Like stoked. This is great.
Mhm.
And I have gone through boxes and boxes and boxes of those things, and I love them. And I now have, you know, get them with the DOA and the name and all that stuff, and they're one of my favorite things to give out to
Mhm.
any fans and things like that. You know, it's like they've been great. I can't break them, but I get rid of lots of them because I play them for a show and then give them out.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm a massive fan. What
And
about
you
you?
can't give out a fresh pair. You have to give out a pair that's been used. Like
No
nobody
way.
wants to get a stick that's like out of the
Brand
box,
new.
right? Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, 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 no. Yeah, totally. So like I actually, you know, in my stick bag, I have sticks that I definitely won't play anymore. Like I played them to death, but I keep them because when the little kids come up, you know, the little 9-year-old potential one day punk rock drummer kid, and he's like asks for your autograph. It's like you just hand him these drumsticks, and then you think,
Hmm.
hey man, you know, I know it for sure happened once to this. We were playing, it was a BC show, and there was this one like super young girl, and her mom was there, and she's like, oh, you know, she like, you know, all ages show. Really, I love all ages shows, loving all the
Yeah,
kids
they're
show
the
up and they
best.
all go nuts. It's like the
Yeah.
best, right? So I was like, oh, I got better that. What? Just give her some drumsticks. Oh, she's always really been interested in drumming, and I'm like, oh, cool. Sure enough, 2 years later, this woman comes up. I didn't recognize her or anything like this, but she's like, hey, a couple of years ago, you did this. And I'm like, yeah, well, my daughter's a drummer now and she's doing all this stuff. And I think you really inspired her. And I was just like, okay, that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
All those sticks I gave out over the years, it
Yeah.
worked once, you know? Yeah. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you use 2B,
The two B's. Yeah. There
the
it
two
is.
B's, yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Right. Well, I've gone through a few different ones. I was using 5B Intense, and then I was using Rock, and then I recently switched to just regular 5B.
Okay.
Um, so in those ones I have my the band and all that stuff on it.
Do you have the wooden? Do you like wooden or plastic tip?
Wood,
Good. Yeah. Same.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I never break the tips like other brand we're not going to name, but like the
Exactly.
tips would always like split in half or break,
Yeah.
and these
Yeah.
tips never
No,
break.
I know. I know
I mean,
that.
I
Yeah.
haven't, and I'm, playing in a punk band that's one volume,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
You know
So,
the score. Yeah.
so I have a new segment for this podcast. Yeah, this is the first episode back with under this format, and I'm calling this the crash questions.
Okay.
So they're kind of quick fire, but not really. I mean, they can be if you want.
Do you remember, I'm 52, man. My brain doesn't quick fire too much. I'll do my
I'm
best.
not far behind you.
Really?
So
Oh, you're looking
yeah.
well.
Um, so what's your happy groove place? Is it on the hi-hats or is it on the ride? Like when
Hi
you're
hats,
just
definitely.
on the
Hi hat
hats?
for sure. So there's beats that I can't, for some reason, I can't keep it together on the ride. My foot sometimes gets weird when I'm on the ride. I don't know what it is, but
Mhm.
hi hats for sure.
Hi-hats all the way.
Hi
Cool.
hats.
What's your favorite or oldest, which I guess could lend itself to being favorite, piece of gear that you can't go without? Like it's with you everywhere.
Well, the only thing that's lasted for any length of time is I have a big old ride cymbal that has, yeah, it's just, it's on, oh, I can't, I don't even know what it is because everything's worn off it, but I've had it since the 90s. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah, that's that. And that has been with me in every single band that I've ever been in since the 90s. I bought
Mhm.
it. I bought it in 1991.
Wow.
And this isn't a rapid fire answer. I actually didn't buy it. I actually stole it and got caught.
You stole it what?
I stole it and got caught. Well, I didn't get caught. I did get caught. So what I did was I went into Tom Lee Music in Vancouver in 1991, and my brother co-signed for me, and I co-signed for my brother so we could like finance a gear. And I got myself a beautiful green Canwood drum set and all the trimmings, and financed it, and then left the store and didn't ever make a payment because we were broke, and and eventually they caught up with me. It's a long story. I paid everybody back, but it was like the creditors calling you and calling you names and all that stuff that used to
Yeah.
happen
Yeah.
in the 90s, and threats and things like that. So they ended up getting me, but I bought it then. At that point, it
Mhm.
was part of it, so what is that? 33 years, and it's still, that's what you hear every time you hear ding 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 coming from
Really?
me.
So
Yeah.
it's got like a nice big bell. Or
Got a
you?
big bell. Everyone always talks about the bell, actually. Yeah, the
Yeah.
big, nice, old school bell. And I spend a lot of time really, digging into the bell.
Hmm.
Ding, 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 ding,
Yeah.
ding, ding, that kind of stuff. So,
Like a
yeah,
jazz musician.
totally. Except for without any skill. Imagine a super unskilled jazz musician.
You just
Right on
make
the
shit
spot.
up on the fly and you don't repeat anything. There
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Jazz scares the shit out of me, actually. I could never play it. And I mean, yeah, I hear a lot of guys that play it and, changes their whole perspective and their
Yeah.
technique. And I can't, I'm, I'm like in my mid 40s, so I'm not going to learn anything new at this point.
No. No.
Yeah.
No. And I honestly, I do kind of almost feel like it's a different instrument. It's that much different. Like, to me anyways, than what I'm used to. So yeah,
Yeah. It's a whole other school.
the whole other school,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
And we
And
come from the punk rock school. So
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would love to maybe in my retirement or one day, when I'm flying off into the sunset or something, maybe learn a couple jazz chops. But in the meantime, it wouldn't serve me very well.
No, not a
No.
waste of time. You heard it here first. Jazz is a waste of time. All right. Next quick fire question. And this is kind of apropos for today. Um, do you prefer cake or pie?
Pie.
Yes.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
And
totally.
it's pie day.
Is it?
It's 3/14. Yeah.
There you have it.
Um, okay.
The day's over. At least I hear it's still pretty early.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna be going to
Uh,
bed soon.
oh, well, thanks
Yeah.
for staying up for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's way past my bed. I had to take some uppers to stay up. So if you could time travel, well, I mean, I guess you're from Ireland, so I could make a Doctor Who reference.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
okay.
Yeah, Doctor Who,
So if you had a
absolutely.
TARDIS, and you
Yeah.
could go anywhere at any time, any live event, past or current, where would you go?
I always regretted not playing with the Ramones when I had a chance back in the 90s when they're still around. That's like one of my favorite bands. So we had an opportunity to play with them, and we didn't go to the festival. So I would go back to 1992, uh, the Infest Festival where the Ramones played, and I didn't go. And our band was like supposed to be on the bill, and
Oh man.
it was one of those things. And I missed that. And one of my favorite bands of all time. I've never seen them live. Never saw them live. So any Ramones show, I'd go back to.
Yeah. Yeah. Was that with DOA or
That show, no, this was way before that. This was like, this is 30 something years ago, and it
okay.
was Rusty Nails, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, I suppose the 90s, yeah. Duh.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
90s. Yeah, we were on that. We were invited onto that bill, and I don't know why. I can't remember at this point. I think it was our guitar player's fault. I'll blame him. And we pulled out and we didn't go. But at that point you thought, oh, I'll have a million opportunities to
Yeah,
play
right.
with you guys, You just thought it would be. I didn't realize it'd all be dead shortly after, but yeah.
Um, so what would be your proudest accomplishment that you've done musically?
Oh man, that's a tough one.
Yeah, they're not all quick fire. They're called crash, not quick. So
Oh geez. Oh man, proudest. Uh, I guess like just the fact that I knowing that I was able to take the chance to join this particular band when I knew I wasn't totally up for it, but I made that call anyway because I thought, well, it's now or never, and I would love to tour the world. And even though I probably I was out of my league a little bit, but I went for it, and then it all worked out in the end. So I guess I'm proud that I didn't listen to my own. I had a lot of shit rolling around in my head about not being good enough, or this is too much chaos right now, or like all that. I was listening. I had a lot of reasons to not do it at the
Mhm.
time, especially because I hadn't really played drums much in years up to then.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm glad, I guess, that, yeah, is this a proud moment? I don't know if it's a proud moment,
Sure
but
is.
yeah,
You,
yeah,
you
that I did.
trusted in yourself.
Yeah, that I took that
You know,
chance
you
because
bet
it
on
really has
yourself. Yeah.
worked out. Yeah. Like my favorite thing about being in DOA is DOA is the perfect size band for me. I never really had aspirations of being a rock star like the people recognized on the streets. Never really had that. And I always loved punk rock. Like punk rock to me has like literally been the theme of my entire life since I was a 10-year-old kid. So like that band has, yeah, it's been great to play in that band and play those songs and do tours, but it's like almost every one of my favorite living people that I idolized or gave a shit about when I was growing up, I've some of them I can call friends because like I've hung out with them so much and we've like done so many cool things with this. So DOA is just that band that's just like perfect size because we can play big shows all over the world and we can play clubs to 30 people. The
Mhm.
show's always going to be the same. And DOA's been around long enough that if we go play a festival with a bunch of other bands, a lot of those bands come to see Joe. They want to go pay some respects to Joe. So even though this guy's super famous now, well, he's the reason that Joe's the reason he picked up a guitar. So he wants to come meet Joe. So I get to meet a lot of really, really great bands. We played once in Poland with Slayer, and I was a massive Slayer kid when I was like 16 or whatever, right? Whenever
Mhm.
Rain and Blood came out, was, I don't know what that was, 86 maybe, 15.
Yeah.
So massive fan, right? So we're playing this show with Slayer, and Tom Araya is like hunched down, just right side to the drum riser, just hunched down with a hoodie on, his big beard, watching the band, and I'm playing, thinking like he's just like DOA is big enough that Tom Araya wants to watch us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
after the show, comes up to Joe, and he's like, "Oh, I've always been a great fan," and all this like stuff, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I'm not taking credit for any of the DOA history, but it has enough history that you got a guy like Tom Araya really be stoked on meeting Joe.
Yeah.
Now, Joe didn't know who he was, but I love that about Joe.
That's funny.
Yeah, but I was stoked, so yeah, all those opportunities just to really get to know some really rad people, like really, really rad people. Like, and I text all the time with people that at one point I would have had like posters on the wall of them and things like that, right? So that's been really neat
Yeah.
because
And I
at heart,
guess now DOA, you can consider them like the stewards of Canadian punk rock,
totally,
right?
yeah,
Like you think of Canadian punk rock, there's a few bands that you're going to think of, and within, I'd have to say, top two or three, it's going to be DOA.
DOA, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, yeah,
Yeah.
without a doubt. Like they've made that mark. They're
Yeah.
there. Like that's and that will for the end of time, DOA will like really made the mark for Canada in the world of punk rock. And even in Canada, it's weird because in Canada, everybody's a little bit tired of DOA, or a lot of people can be a little bit tired of DOA. They'll say things like, I've seen them a million times or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You go tour around the world, and it's like it's amazing how we can play some pretty big shows and people like really 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 dig. Like Canada still is great, like I'm not
Yeah.
saying anything bad, but Canada, it's kind of like in Canada, it's like they're so used to us, right? They're so
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just like they're so used to us. But it's pretty fascinating to see other countries, and like I say, and so many other artists, like big artists, all want to meet Joe because they're like, I just remember seeing Joe back in '79
Yeah.
or whatever, and
Yeah.
it's cool. Yeah, really cool.
Yeah. Okay. So next
I'm
question.
not sticking to these flash rules very well, am I?
No, no, no. The
Classic
crash
Irishman.
question. So um, this kind of is a bit of a tricky one. So what song or drum part do you wish you were the guy that recorded it?
Oh, that's so easy. That's not tricky at all. I wish I would have recorded all of Hardcore 81, that album. The drumming on that album, to me still, because I have to play a lot of those songs on that album.
Mhm.
and Chuck's drumming on that album is inspired. He's on fire.
Yeah.
So like I am a massive Chuck Biscuits fan. So that I wish I yeah I it, to I'm not like I'm not actually old enough really to have been on that album because that album came out when I was 10 years old. But if I could be on any album that was ever recorded of all time, and I'm talking like famous like
Yeah.
Neil Young albums or whatever.
Yeah.
No, I would want to be the guy who did that, what Chuck did on Hardcore 81 at whatever age he was, 17 or something. That's what I would.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
That's sweet.
That's easy. That's easy one. Yeah, I've
Nice.
idolized that record my entire life.
Um, so if you guys were to go back to touring in a van and had a CD player, what CD would you not want to be stuck in it?
Hey, first of all, we totally tour in a van. I don't know what
Okay.
back touring in a van means, but we tour in a van. Yeah, like not even a really nice van. And uh, well, let's see. There is CDs that I want to put a gun in my mouth when they are in the van because everybody in the van has eclectic tastes. And there's some like I don't like our bass player. I love him, Mike, our bass player. Mike loves all types of music, and Mike has bands that he likes to put on that I seriously I can't say because he might listen to this and he'll just.
All right, fair enough.
You ever heard of Warrior Soul?
No.
Yeah, never listen to that band.
All right. So
Just
we'll
think,
just put their discography as the answer.
yeah, just think like the most terrible like '90s. Like I don't know. He doesn't play it very much anymore because I complain about it so much. But that's a band I really hate being stuck in. I'm not. I'm not too picky. In our you'd be surprised how little punk rock gets played in the tour van. It's
Oh yeah.
Joe likes Johnny Cash a lot, and we do listen to things like the Clash and the Ramones, of course, like that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. But new punk rock we don't play very often, like because bands will give us their discs and things on tour all the time. We'll stick them in and roll them a few times, but generally we go back to Johnny Cash or even like you like the kind of stuff your folks listen to,
Yeah.
like Merle Haggard or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a little bit of that. And what's that old crooner called? Frank Sinatra. Like weird stuff like that gets played in the van a lot more often than modern punk rock.
Mhm.
And I think it's just to kind of keep everybody
Well, I mean,
sedate.
you're playing it, you're hearing it when you're at the club, like yeah, the opening bands or the other bands on the bill. It's a lot of the same genre, so it's good to have that, that fresh take, that something else to influence you or just to turn your brain off.
Totally.
Yeah.
And one thing that you mentioned there that is like is so true is, oftentimes, I'm sitting through 3 or 4 opening bands, and every band we play with is a punk rock band, right? So, and we'll play, 30 nights in a row, and times that by all those opening bands. It's like I listen to a lot of live punk rock.
Hmm.
And some of these bands, it's their first or second show, and things like that. I love it still. Like I still usually try to, not always. Sometimes I go sleep in the van, but
Hmm.
I try to check out the opening acts because sometimes you get really surprised, right? You know. But yeah, I listen to a lot. So yeah, maybe that's why. Maybe in the van, everybody's like, okay, we don't need to
Yeah.
hear another punk rock song.
Yeah. You need a reset.
You need
Yeah.
a reset, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So this is the last one. And it's kind of funny because of how you joined D.O.A. and kind of got put through the ringer. But what band could you, like, if you got a phone call right now that said so and so can't make it, we need you now without rehearsal, what band could you sub in for?
Right now. Well, that's a good question. So I could sub in for MDC, Millions of Dead Cops, but the only reason that is they kind of needed a sub at one point, and I kind of went through as much as I could. I I could sub in for the Mahones because they called me.
That's cheating.
'Cause guess what? Yeah.
Do you still
Let's
play
see.
with them, or do they like? Are you
No,
too
no,
busy
no,
with
no. I,
DOA?
no, I
Like,
did. I did. Yeah, there's just too much happening. I did, I'm gonna say 30 dates with them or something like that. And
Mhm.
it was great. It was great. It was different. Actually, I learned a lot from those cats. Those guys are good musicians.
Yeah.
Like Mike, their whistle player, is the best musician I ever played with in my entire life. That guy, he's a real straight shooter too. He just tells you, right? So I came out of the gate just too hot, playing too hard, too fast, and he was just like, you gotta take it down a peg, and like I say, subtlety, those have never been my strong points.
Mhm.
And that was a really great experience because within a few shows I was able to drum in a way I'd never drummed before in my life. Like I really like, and I had to learn live. That was another thing. Like talk about getting thrown into I met those guys for the first time in my life 2 hours before we jumped on stage for the very first show of a tour. Like I never rehearsed one day with them. I never rehearsed 1 hour. We just went straight to the stage. Like I met the bass player, Sean, fucking legend guy. I met him on stage. Hey man, how's it going? And we started the set. I
Wow.
never did that before. I was always like, I'd like give me at least a rehearsal or two or something. But
Mhm.
so I had to really learn on the fly as we were going with that band. And like I say, great guy, super talent, great. Finney's a great songwriter, amazing songwriter. And Mike he just kind of like he put me, and he didn't put me in my place. He was really gentle, but he's like, yeah, take it down a peg, do this, do this, do this. And I was just like, okay. But I'm also like, what? You guys saw videos of me. Why would you hire fucking me if you don't, this is what I do, So,
Yeah.
um, it actually really helped my drumming because I just could be actually on stage and not hit it as hard as I can, or just like not give it to that same extent that I was used to. So it was kind of neat learning subtleties, so
Mhm.
they were great. And I could probably fill in, just to go back to the original question, SNFU. I could feel
Oh
it if
man.
they were still a band, because
Yeah.
I was weaned on that music. So I
Yeah.
would know every lyric to every song, and I could probably walk right now and at least do a half decent job of making it through
Mhm.
every single, at least off the first three albums. I could do every single
Yeah.
song. Yeah.
I just listened to In the Meantime today.
Yeah. And would you know what? That is an underrated album.
I was just
Because,
gonna say that. A
yeah,
total
it's
underrated
so
album.
good. That album belongs with the first three. Like it's that
100%.
good. It's
Yeah.
that good. Yeah, such amazing songs on that record. But it's kind of like it's one of those ones that people because the time it came out and stuff, it's a little bit of a forgotten SNFU record. But man, it's 10 out of 10. Mhm.
I totally agree.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
not many people like, maybe people do. I don't know, but a lot of people, there's some epitaphy type SNFU fans for sure.
Mhm. Yeah.
But everybody loves those first three records. At least the people of my generation, that those, if you swear, is like, yeah, I'd say one of the most important records in my life. So definitely, I think I could drum those first three records. I definitely could sing along to every word.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Probably could drum along as well. Yeah.
I don't want to take up your whole evening. I know it's getting around supper time in your neck of the woods, so um,
What time
we
is it
could
there where
keep.
you're at?
Right now, it's 10 o'clock.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
not too
it's not terribly late. I mean, I could keep going, but I don't want to take up your whole evening. I do appreciate that you agreed to do this.
Of
Um,
course.
this has been awesome. I can't wait to. They haven't announced the lineup yet. I'm sure. Well, by the time this comes out, they'll have announced the lineup for that Punk Fest.
Nice.
That we'll get to hopefully play on the same night because that would be a lot of fun. Um,
Well, what did you say? The guy who puts it on, the owner there, I can't remember his name. Trevor.
Trevor Young, yep.
Yeah,
He
Trevor.
and I grew up like 2 or 3 houses down from each other.
Well, did you just call Trevor and just say, "Hey, man, get us on the night with D.O.A." I was just talking to Paddy, the drummer. He's like, "Tell him we'll make it happen. We want to
Make it
play on
happen.
the night." Yeah, because Paddy wants to use my drum set.
Yeah, our bass player Sean, he's a huge DOA fan, and he was so excited when it was announced last year, and then he was so bummed out. And then when it was announced this year, these were coming back, he's like, "Well, I mean, obviously, like, yeah,
Yeah. Well, make
So
sure you get on the same night. That'd be awesome. That'll be super fun. Yeah.
awesome. Cool. Well, thank you again. And yeah, can't wait to meet you in person.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, thank you very much for the invite and thanks for having me. It was great chatting.
Cool. Thank you all for listening or watching the podcast this week. We'll be back with another great episode coming up, with another fantastic guest. The links will be in the description for anything Los Cabos, as well as for this week's guest, Paddy Duddy, and all things D.O.A. So with that, until the next one, please take care of yourselves and each other. Bye for now.